Hi everyone. I can't believe that yet again I'm doing another video with no makeup on, and not only no makeup, but I've just had my eyebrows and eyelashes done at the beautician, so I've had them waxed and I'm probably bright red, but hey, here I am, as I am. I wanted to talk to you all today about um, why we struggle to get back on plan when we've eaten off plan, or any plan, any sort of dieting that we do. When we decide to stop for whatever reason, and obviously the most recent one is Christmas, why is it that we struggle to get back on plan? And if you're one of those at the moment, let me reassure you, you are certainly not alone, which is one of the reasons, obviously, why I'm doing this for you. So uh, I thought this video would be about why it happens and then what you can do about it. I was going to do it via Facebook Live, but the more I thought about it over the last couple of days, the more I thought that actually this is so important, this concept, that I think it needed to be on the YouTube video. So there are three elements to this. The first thing is that I think it's really important to remember the science of what's literally chemically going on in your body. I'm not going to go into great detail about this, but just on some level, when you're doing any form of dieting, your body thinks you're starving. Now, when you do Cambridge Weight Plan, you're getting 100% of all the vitamins and minerals and proteins, etc., fatty acids, all of that you need. It's just that your blood sugars are probably slightly lower, or definitely slightly lower than when you were having pizzas and I'm trying to think of the sort of things I would have had, Jaffa cakes and chocolate, and therefore, because your blood sugar levels are rumbling lower, when you're doing some form of dieting, your body thinks on some level that you're starving, because you're not, because you're getting everything you need and your body's producing that for yourself. But your body's a real primeval machine, and on some level your body thinks you are. So, and that's fine, we cope with it fine, and we produce the energy that we need through burning our fat, which is how, of course, this works. But how any form of dieting works, of course. But when you then go and suddenly eat off plan, so let's say you've been solidly on plan and then you broke it for the Christmas Day, say, as a good example at the moment. You introduce the chocolates and the Christmas pudding, the Christmas meal, whatever else it is, the wine, whatever else it is you chose to have. And then what happens inside of your brain is your brain goes, oh my God, it acts very primevally, and thinks that the primeval cave woman inside of you, or caveman inside of you, has found the right berry bush at long last after a bit of famine. And what happens then is that your brain then sends out enormous signals to eat, because it's thinking, well, there's been a bit of a famine on. We don't know whether this is just a one-off, whether it's going to come back again, what. So let's just get them to eat as much of this as we can. So you smell it, you obsess about it, you dream about it, you see pictures of it, food everywhere, and that's what happens. And that's a very chemical response that kicks in. So now imagine that you have tried desperately to get back on plan after this chemical response happening, and you can imagine what panic is going on in your brain as to, oh no, it really is, this famine really is kicking off again, and you've still got those signals of, but we want you to eat, we want you to eat, we want you to eat, because your brain on some level thinks you're starving. So that's chemically why it happens inside of you. Remember the science of this. And the other two ways, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about, and I'll talk right at the end about what you can do about the sciencey bit. The second thing I wanted to talk about was that if you're struggling to refocus and get back on plan again, then one of the reasons for that is often that your goals aren't vivid enough for you. They're not emotionally charged enough for you, and therefore the lure of the food is more powerful in the moment that you're choosing to eat than the desperation of wanting to lose weight. And it's not even the desperation of wanting to lose weight, it's the desperation of wanting to get to your goal. Yes, of course we all want to lose weight when we diet, but it's about getting to that goal that you want to get to. One of the things I thought you'd find really interesting is in preparation for this video, I've been asking my extremely successful dieters how they did it, how they stayed on plan or got back on plan afterwards, and how is it that they managed to do that. And so I thought I'd read you some of the things they said, which I thought you'd find very interesting. For me personally, as someone who's lost 7.5 stone and has been back on step 2, as my clients all know, for the last couple of weeks, just to lose my Christmas weight, so I've had to go through this process as well. For me, it's about having a very, very vivid idea of where I'm heading. So personally for me, and I've talked quite a bit with a lot of you about this, I've got a very, very clear image in my head of me on Saturday night going to my husband's work sto and walking in feeling fantastic, and I even make it so crazy and vivid that I put Bear Grylls, who I'm rather fond of, at one of the tables at the restaurant, glancing up at me as I walk in, thinking, oh, she looks nice, how can I get my number to her? I make it as stupid and as vivid and as emotionally charged as I can, so that is the thing that I focus on all the time, and I literally have a movie running in my head about that. I can do it right now as I'm talking to you, and I've written a little bit about that in the last newsletter that I sent out last week, which you can access via my Facebook business page if you want to. So what the other guys said, so the things I've got written down here are, I reached rock bottom. I felt so awful, and I hated myself, and I knew that I needed to do something about it, and I felt so bad. And what I did was I focused on how I wanted to I wanted to feel really great again. And so this person was very much focusing on letting go of the awful rock bottom feeling and focusing on where she actually wanted to be. Another person said to me, I wasn't blind that I'd been putting on weight or that I'd come off plan, but I could make that awareness go away sometimes. However, this time round, I was so aware that it didn't go away, and I knew that I had to do something about it, because it's interesting, isn't it? Because I felt so miserable again. Someone else has said, something tipped the balance for me. And I can't even tell you what it was, but I knew that I'd reached the point where I had to do something about it. Someone else has said, not doing something about my weight was a form of self-punishment, which is really interesting, and I'll come on to that in a minute. I hit rock bottom, there's that word again, and I didn't want to feel like this anymore. And the final thing I'm going to say is I was so miserable, I just couldn't keep going like that, and I wanted to feel better. So all these people have reached a very, very low point about where they feel about themselves, and then they are focusing on letting go of that and wanting to move forwards to something different. So they're all of my successful dieters, and these are people who've lost 7.5 stone, running through them, 7.5 stone, another 7.5 stone, 6 stone, 5 stone, 3 stone, 4 stone. You know, these are people who can do this. Not that you can't do it, but these are people who have done it. Perhaps that's a bit of description. So there's something to be learned from that, I think. So I think I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about goal setting in another video, because that's another whole subject in itself. But basically, if you think, I'm someone who wants to lose weight, but I don't know exactly what that means to me, it's not enough just to say to yourself, I'm healthy, I want to be healthier, or I want to lose a bit of weight. Get a really, really, really clear idea of exactly what that means to you and how that feels. What will it feel like, taste like, look like? What will people say to you? What will you say to yourself? How will you feel? What will you be wearing? Get that as vivid as possible and run that all the time, because that is what you want, isn't it? So I think I'm going to do another video about that one though. I had a bit of a revelation today, actually, as I was musing about this video, as to one of the reasons why I think I've struggled to lose weight and get back on plan in the past. And the revelation today was that I had to go into the post office today to check up on why a parcel of bras that I'd sent to Ellie at uni hadn't arrived. I posted them 8 days ago now, and they still haven't arrived. And you know, it's not a cheap pack of bras. She'd left them behind when we took her back to uni, and she needed them, and so I posted them off to her with a couple of other things, and they've not arrived and they've gone missing. And as I was driving home, I was thinking that that's an expensive parcel, and what I blooming well should have done was done it recorded delivery, and how stupid of me not to do that. I didn't. I just did it first class and hoped for the best. And I realised as I was mulling about this, the revelation was that in the past, what I would have done is I wouldn't have owned that failure. It was my failure. I should have done it recorded delivery. It's not my responsibility that they've gone missing, but it's my fault that I didn't do something that expensive, recorded delivery. And in the past, if that would have happened, I wouldn't have, I know I wouldn't have said anything to my husband. I would have tried to have hidden what had happened from him. Or I would have told him about it and then blamed someone else or something else, even to the point of sometimes lying and pretending that, and saying that it was something else that had caused it. And I found that really interesting as I was driving home, that, you know, I'm not going to do that this time, but why was it that I was drawn to do that last time? And I know that having thought about it, that it comes from a place of not wanting to fail, to be seen as imperfect in some way, and to have failed at something, and to have not done well at something, or to have, I should have done it better and I didn't. And therefore, because I knew I'd failed, or I would have failed, I wouldn't have said something, I'd have hidden it, I'd have felt really bad in myself, and then I would have ate. And the reason I think that I ate was because eating makes you feel better. It's one of our survival responses, and again, I think I might do another video about that as to why that is. And eating also, for me, so it stopped me feeling bad, but it also was almost a form of self-punishment. You know, I knew I was very overweight, and I knew I needed to do something about it, and that eating was another way of, it was reprimanding myself, I guess, when I would have expected, and my husband wouldn't reprimand me for doing something like this at all, but clearly I felt that I needed to be self-punished because I wasn't, or punished because I wasn't being perfect. So what on earth do you do about that? You know, why do I not do that now? And I think that I think if you identify with that and think, yes, you do self-punish and you do eat to feel better, and this is going back to the off-plan eating again here. I think that one of the reasons people struggle is because when they've eaten off-plan, so again using Christmas as an example, we revert to our old ways of, in those moments when we choose to go back to our old way of eating, we revert to our old ways of using food. And obviously you can't do that when you're dieting. And when it then comes to starting back again on plan, you realise that you have to let go of that way of coping. And I did a previous Facebook Live video about this, didn't I? About how I recognised that was what I was doing over Christmas for myself because of the family stress that we were under. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that in yourself. If you think that is something that you're doing, that you are feeling really sad or angry or resentful, that you have to let go of the food in order to lose the weight, then that's telling you that you're using food for something other than fuel. And you've all got diaries that I give you, and you've all got triggers forms in your information packs that I give you. If you think this is you, then okay, take a look at that and be prepared to really look at how are you using food. For me, as I've just told you in that previous example, it would have been that I felt like I failed, or I felt bad about something, and I didn't want to face those difficult feelings and then move on. And so I squashed those feelings down with the food, and I know that's what I did. And now I face them, and it's never as bad as you think it is. So what to do about all this? Pink triggers forms and food diary. Get Technicolor goals in place so that you're having a really, really vivid idea of where it is you're heading. And remember the science. Remember, when you're starting back on plan, push through to day 3, day 4, and all that sciencey, chemically stuff just starts to quieten down, and it gets easier and easier the longer you do it and the more you do it. So good luck getting back on plan, everyone, for anyone who's been off plan. Hope that really helps you. Bye.